This anime begins with our protagonist called Tawara Souta, who is returning to his homeland Kagawa, well known for the famousness Udon restaurants. He is back because his father has passed away, causing the family restaurant to close. He has no interest in continue with his family legacy, so his friend is sad and thinks that Tokyo has changed him, and that is why he doesn't want to stay in this small town. Souta arrives his home, but sees the restaurant very disrepair and had a bad scare seeing that a child is in there, but this runs away. He doesn't give importance and goes shopping for dinner, but the gossip neighbor says to him that is a child in the restaurant door and she thought he was his son. So protagonist realizes that is the same child. He notices he is starving and invites him to go inside and make dinner for him while he consults his friend what to do since the child doesn't seems to be a neighbor's son because his untidy aspect. But he is not the type of person who cares about others, so he has said that he should take him to the police. The protagonist thinks it is the best because his parents may be worried about him. Souta leaves him watching cartoons while he is looking for something to wear when his sister called him to ask how it is all going with the house because they wanted to sell after clean it up. The boy is now playing with a frog, so he has to hang up the call and see what's going on and get surprised by the frog jumping over his face. But this is just the beginning because the child now imitates the frog and jumps over him too, making the room a mess. Putting the raincoat on him, he remembers when he was also a child and was happy when he could go out and play in the rain thanks to his raincoat. Then a usual customer of the restaurant arrives and he has to give her the sad notice that they are not planning on reopen the restaurant ever again. Anyway, the girl asks if they can let her know if they open, so the protagonist is surprised on how important the restaurant is to people. Souta takes the little boy to the police station, but he gets distracted by the frog again and ends up in a temple where a monk was going to take him thinking he was lost and also heard that a tanuki who shapeshifts to human was going around the town. But after seeing the child with the protagonist, he changed his mind. Then they encountered tourists looking for the restaurant, so we tell them it's closed again, but they are pretty insistent because the famousness of it. So he gets a little annoyed because he never mastered the family technique. Then the child notices his anger and attacks the tourists, so the protagonist stops him and is surprised to see that he has grown ears and a tail. This is definitely not normal, so we cover him up and run away with him while he remembers the monk words about a tanuki who can transform into a child. Anyway, he still can't believe what he just saw. Souta panics into a dream about the tanuki child where he runs away. Besides, he is in denial because his mind cannot believe what he just saw. But next day he goes outside and the tanuki jumps over him as usual. However, he hides quickly because his neighbor comes to hunt him down for having destroyed the gardens. The protagonist doesn't stitch on him because the woman wanted to make a soap out of tanuki, so she quits and just give a Tupperware with beans she made to him. The protagonist says that he doesn't want problems with any neighbor, but the tanuki is hungry, so he accepts to feed him, so he jumps over him happily. After eating, the tanuki gets dirty, so the protagonist gives him a bath, and obviously his ears and tail attracts much attention, so you make him promise that he is not showing it or other humans will hunt down him, so he accepts. The tanuki needs clothes, so they go shopping, and the tanuki is very excited because all of this is new to him. But Souta is nostalgic going around the town because he met his first love at the train station, but it lasts too little because she had a boyfriend, and even now he is embarrassed at how he failed so quick. Arriving, the tanuki loves a tea with a lion he saw in the cartoons, but Souta thinks it is weird because he forgets the alimentary chain that a girl crashed with the tanuki and he starts crying. Her mother scolds her for being insensitive with him, and she turns out being the protagonist's first love called May. To top it all, she recognizes him, so he is nervous and remembers he hates the town for being small and meeting everyone by chance. So now he has to explain who the boy is, and he has not even chosen a name for him. Souta makes up a name and calls him Poko, and how he likes it, he stays with it. Now they has met each other again, she invites him to a coffee shop, although he expected something different for this encounter with his first love. Rather than a romantic date, it is a gathering with child crying. Poko is surprised about how good-looking candies are, and when his jelly arrives, he looks like the happiest person in the world while Souta feed him. So the maid's daughter called Nozomi throws a tantrum because she wanted to be fed too, so Poko invites her a little bit of his jelly and Nozomi realizes her bad behavior. May says that they look like father and son, and he says that they not because he doesn't even have a girlfriend. However, May says that don't hurry because he has plenty of time to get one and he has lived a quite different life in Tokyo, so he still have time to live as a family guy just like her that was very happy these last years. May and Poko are now good friends and now they come back home, but Poko is tired after a long day, so he falls asleep and his transformation vanished, so the protagonist has to lift him to home. Anyway, he realizes the odd things happen when they are together. This brings good memories to him. Next day, Souta remembers he can't stay here forever, and even more, he doesn't understand how it ended up like this, but all of a sudden his childhood friend called Nakajima arrives, wanting to go fishing with him. He forgot about Poko, so when he wakes up, the protagonist has a big scare because he has his tail. He is lucky because Nakajima doesn't ask him much about the little boy, but he recommends him a good lawyer if he is into weird things. Poko is excited touching Nakajima's car, but he scolds him for leaving a handprint on it and for stealing his friend. Anyway, he takes them to the port for fishing, but only by the edge because it can be dangerous for Poko. He is surprised seeing the lighthouse, so Souta tries to raise him up, but his leg hurts because of an accident he had when he was in school. However, the protagonist is shocked because Nakajima asked what is Poko, but he really meant if he was a boy or a girl, and confirming he is a boy he regrets didn't shake him harder because he looked like an overprotected girl. Now they dress Poko for the occasion and show him the bait, but he finds it is delicious, so they have to take it away from him, and even more, the fishing might be slow, so Poko is bored and go to play around. Nakajima tells that he also met Mao by chance and is surprised to see that she has children. So Souta asks him if he thinks about getting married, but he says that he speaks like his mother, but is not his plan because he heard that a man only have time for their family or their job, and him as a doctor wants to help the biggest number of people he could, so marriage is not in his plans by the moment. Souta changes topic because they were sad about being single and confessed that until his father passed away, he didn't think about that he didn't want the restaurant to close down, but lots of things happened and now he wants to keep his home. Nakajima says that he must stay if he wants, but the protagonist is worried for his job because besides he can work there, he doesn't know if he could get customers, but he also doesn't know if he wants to come back to Tokyo. So Nakajima is annoyed with such hesitation. Poko tries to calm him down with the crab he caught, but the rod moves and almost takes the child, so Nakajima deduces it is something big, and it ended up being an octopus. It was angry about being fished, so it spills tint to Poko, and now he is scared. However, they are happy for at least fishing something because they haven't done it since they were students, and all of a sudden the protagonist decided to go to Tokyo, so they could never do it again. But he is grateful with Poko, because now he is remembering the life he left behind. Then they are deeply slept, and the Sauta's sister, called Rinko, arrives to the house. Poko is the first to wake up and is scared for seeing her, so he starts crying, waking up the others. Rinko asks whose the child is and deduces is Nakajima's, but he denies it immediately while Poko still cries, and Rinko feels bad because children always cry every time they see her. Nakajima says that he's afraid of her, so she responds by throwing him a punch, so he leaves an order for the protagonist to calm down her sister. So he explains that he is a friend's son and he is going to be there this vacation. Souta begins to worry about what will be of Poko once he leaves, so he remembers him that he shouldn't show anybody his ears and tail. Going down, everything is cleaned up and Rinko has the great idea to spend some time together and is going to the temple. Souta realizes that this temple worships tanukas a lot, and even Rinko says that Poko seems like one, so the protagonist panics and changes topic. They continue walking around and they see that there is a legend of an ancient general that in reality it was a tanuki. Also, he was considered a god, so the protagonist supposes he is a distant relative of Poko, but he just smiles as always. Then they do temple things as pray or test their luck. Souta realizes he's getting older because besides being tired, his leg is in pain. Then they go to rest a little bit while they eat ice cream, and Rinko says that this place brings some memories because they came with their father as children. Souta can't remember any of it, and Rinko scolds Poko for getting dirty, making him throw his ice cream because of the scare, so the protagonist calm him down and he goes to play around. Rinko feels frustrated that children hates her because the protagonist has always been the opposite, but she can't help but to think that if she could have given a grandson to his father, maybe their relationship would have been better. The protagonist feels the same but doesn't want to talk about it, and remember that he actually went there as a child, so he teaches Poko the same his father taught him, how to throw tokens to water. Souta ignores the job calls because he is indecisive and calm down her sister, saying that his returning calls later. However, they come back and Poko diverts towards a bridge, so they have a bad scare seeing that he almost fell off. The protagonist wants to go for him, but he has vertigo and cannot do it quickly in that old bridge, so is Rinko the one who helps Poko. After saving him, she sings a song in order to calm him down and continue the returning to home, and realizes that he's got attached to her brother but also likes her, so she starts to feel his maternal instinct, so they all return very happy to home. Days later, Nakajima is quietly at the hospital reminiscing his childhood until he receives a call from Souta, who invites him to lunch because he needs a favor. It turns out to be that he needs him to record a video for the ex-students gathering. Nakajima says that he has to take care about himself besides lose time with Poko, and the protagonist is stay quiet because he feels it is true, but Poko attacks Nakajima for saying that kind of things. His teacher is surprised to see the protagonist with a child. Then, as usual, Nakajima and Souta start to argue, and Poko asks them to calm down and get along with each other. So the teacher finds it funny that a child have to tell them how to behave. Souta feels that he got away with everyone for living in Tokyo and feeling he was upside all of them, but he wants to change that and meet their classmates. All of a sudden, they realize that Poko is being chased by a giant dog, so they lift him and start to run away from the dog. Suddenly, Poko's shoe fell off and he tries to get back facing the dog that jumps toward him, but before it gets Poko, Nakajima sacrifices himself in order to save the child. However, the animal was friendly and just licks his face. It turns out that Nakajima has always had that heroic instinct, even when the protagonist was a child. From then on, they get along well with the dog, and Nakajima asks Souta to come with him to some place in order to return the favor. Then the dog's owner appears and recognizes Souta from the restaurant and see that Poko get along well with the dog. She introduces herself as Sei. Now Nakajima decides to leave the place and they follow him. He reveals that he is visiting his father. Then in his father's house, Nakajima argue with his parents because they told them that his father was physically bad, but doesn't seem like that after all. Nakajima's mom invites them to take a shower together to take advantage on the fact they are all there and uses Poko as an excuse to push them to do it, so they have no choice but to accept. Nakajima takes Poko to other shower and leaves Souta with his father, turning out a really uncomfortable situation. The father breaks the ice saying that doesn't understand his son because at the beginning he didn't want to be a doctor, but changed his mind when the protagonist was injured. In the other shower, Nakajima and Poko rest in the hot shower, and Poko is so much relaxed that ends up transforming into his original shape. So when he sees himself in the mirror, he goes underwater and shape-shifts quickly to human, although he loses consciousness. Souta says to Nakajima that he should talk with his father while he can because they are family, and it is normal to argue sometimes. Meanwhile, the father is taking care of Poko and realizes that he loves pineapple as much as his son when he was a child. Souta goes home and Nakajima realizes that his father puts a lot of effort on the hothouse because he is growing pineapples, and now he is very grateful to him for grew something very delicious for him. On the other hand, Poko and the protagonist are having dinner very happy, but he receives a call from his job. They are in big troubles. The next day, Poko wakes up in Tokyo and is surprised over how big the city is. It turns out that Souta came back as soon as possible and had no option but to Poko with him, so now he has to make a decision soon. Their friends are surprised he returned with a child, and his boss wants to have a talk with him as soon as possible. So Poko is alone and is afraid of Sauta's co-workers and ends up running away to the room where developers were resting. The protagonist explains to his boss that he needs more time because he has to take care of Poko, but he doesn't understand why he has to take care of a child that doesn't belong to him due as a responsibility that spent lots of time and money, so now he wants to fix that quickly because he is really valuable for the company, and he knows the protagonist loves his job. Sauta's friend called Hiroshi interrupts because Poko has interrupted his rest and now is angry with the protagonist because he wants to come back to his homeland again, and he is angry with Poko too because he is the reason of that. Souta stays working late and remembers that his boss was the person who taught him many things about web designing and also offered a job in Tokyo, and that is why he is so grateful. But now he sends him home because notice that Poko is bored after a long day and weird for him. They are having dinner, but Poko doesn't even touch his food, and the protagonist realizes something is off and goes home. In the house, Poko faints and he can't take him to the hospital because of his ears and tail, so he calls Nakajima, but he doesn't take the call. Hiroshi finds out that Poko is sick and runs towards the protagonist's house because wants to apologize with him for being rude with Poko. So he breaks in and is really surprised to see a boy with ears and tail. He thinks they are fake, but it seems real to the touch. So the protagonist sends him to rest and made up that is all because the lack of sleep. The next day, Poko is recovered, and when Hiroshi wakes up, the first thing he does is watching Poko and is surprised to see that he has neither ears nor tail. Anyway, he insists on what he saw in the night, but Souta changes topic, confessing the decision he has chosen. Souta has decided to return to homeland because he doesn't want to leave Poko, so Hiroshi is sad because he wanted to finish the project with him. Later, the protagonist delivers his resignation letter, but asking for the chance to finish the project with the group, and his boss accepts and keep the letter until he finished that first. Then he invites them for a walk to a viewpoint where to reveal that in Kagawa there is a marketing company working with websites, so he can work there. Souta is surprised that there is a company like that there and thanks him because he's happy of him being his boss all this time. On the other hand, Hiroshi plans to visit him every time he could, although he can't forget what he saw that night he broke in the protagonist's house. Souta returns to Kagawa and now has to explain to his sister that he quit his job to live in the town, so now she is worried about the decision because all the things he has to do now, but discuss it by phone is really annoying, so she says that she will visit soon. Nakajima also feels that he should be more worried about his job because it is difficult life with a job like that in this town, but the protagonist has no worries by the moment because they still has a project ongoing in Tokyo. Nakajima leaves and the protagonists start cooking lunch, but he realizes that now he is a house husband because he spent lots of time in the kitchen cleaning and sleeping. He also notices that Poko is not there and see him going to visit the neighbor and is surprised to see how he is doing it by himself. The neighbor comes with Poko to invite him some watermelons, and while she teaches Poko how to eat watermelon, she tells Souta that his granddaughter is also feeling like moving into Tokyo and is arguing with his dad to get his approval. This conversation brings memories to the protagonist, so he recommends that his granddaughter to speak with her father, and the grandmother finds funny that a young man is giving her advices. By the night, Poko starts to scratch the walls, so Souta begins with the pains of being dad, but suddenly he receives a call from Mai asking him for a favor. It turns out that she has to go to the doctor, but there is a Go-Go's event, the children's favorite cartoon, so Souta offers to take them there, and Mai is very grateful for that and gives him an advice to correct children that she developed and that Souta still hasn't, and it is to scold them when they are not behaving, but he has to do it creatively or explains the reason good. Souta is surprised that Nozomi has matured so much that now is kind with Poko and even take care of him, walking around the entire place. He is surprised how Nozomi has improved her attitude. They are amazed at the fishes, and Souta says that they can feed them, so the kids are excited seeing how they eat bread, but they didn't take into account that a lot of them would came and now they are shocked on how they destroy the bread. The Kagawa festival is about to start and the kids are already amused. Bensei appears with his brother that is a tanuki enthusiast monk from the temple. It gives a bad feeling to the protagonist, but in this occasion he only will be the DJ, so he completely changes his appearance to liven up the festival. Kids are completely crazy dancing with the Go-Go lion, and even Sei can't help but dance with them. Souta is exhausted, so he just watches from the distance while the kids play, and when they finish, Mai thanks him for the support and offers her help when he needs it. At home, Souta puts paper in the walls so Poko can paint it without scratch walls, and he remembers that has done the same when he was a kid and was was his father who has to dealt with that. But he never reproached him anything, so he thinks that he should have talked more with him when he was alive. However, now he has to take care about Poko, so he leaves him lie down and receives a call from his boss. The next day, Souta goes to Sadoshima Port in ferry, where the marketing company his boss recommended him is situated, and Poko is fascinated about going over the sea. His boss tells him that Hiroshi decided to go on vacation and is going to visit him. Now him and Poko climbs up the ferry to see the sea and feel the air in their faces. Once in mainland, Souta arrives at the office, but there is no one except Yuki, which is sorry because her boss is out, so she recommends to walk around the island while waiting for him, so Poko and him goes to walk by the seashore. It makes him wonder how much time he will be with Poko, so he decides to enjoy all the moments together. On the other hand, Hiroshi arrives to Kagawa and ran into Rinko, turning out to be love at first sight. Turning back with the protagonist, he is sleeping, so Poko go to walk around and finds a boat with a Go-Go flag, so he goes up and ends up trapped in the boat, unintentionally heading the sea. Yuki finds Hiroshi and see him depressed. He explains that even if he mastered everything at developing, he couldn't get the number of the girl he liked, but Souta interrupts very frightened because Poko is nowhere to be found, so they start to look for him separately. Souta looks over the entire island and is really worried about Poko being found in his tanuki shape and someone taking him for that. He is so frightened that he confuses a wild tanuki with Poko, and trying to catch it is almost ran over by a taxi where her sister was traveling, but he realizes that it is not Poko, and now he bursts into tears and reveals that he has lost Poko. Rinko slaps him in order for him to calm down because he has to focus on looking for him, so Souta remembers all the nice moments they spent together and regain composure to look for him. Just by luck, he hears his voice in the distance, so he ran into the seashore and confirms that the shout is from Poko, who is in a boat coming toward him. Souta scolds him for went with a completely stranger, so Poko is sad. But anyway, he gives him a hug now that he found him. It turns out to be that the boat owner is the company's CEO called Manabu, so Yuki scolds him very hard for disappear without letting them know, causing all this trouble. However, Manabu introduces himself as the president of Team Planet, which is the company he manages. Anyway, they still have to tell Hiroshi that they found Poko, and now he is angry because he ran over the entire island looking for him. But now that the mission is accomplished, his spite's feelings for losing the love of his life returns. To his good luck, he sees her in the seashore and notices that is Sauta's sister, so he thinks he will be his brother-in-law and take courage to go and say hi. To his bad luck, he realizes that they doesn't share the last name, so it means that she is married, completely destroying his heart. On the other hand, Poko still feels bad for left without let them know, but Souta says that don't worry about that because all that matters is that they are together. Souta and Poko come back home and notice that there is a bike outside because Hiroshi is there to receive Sauta's consolation. He still has the heart broke knowing that Rinko is married, so Poko shared the Go-Go toy with him in order to calm him down, but he asked him where he did get it. It turns out that Manabu, the company's CEO that was introduced early, is the creator of Go-Go, and the protagonist didn't even know that he was that spectacular. So Hiroshi is thrilled, and the prota is excited for working with someone so talented in this town. However, she walks around the restaurant, so he's feeling like eating some udon, and it's Poko who wants to cook it, so the protagonist has to look for the family recipe and try it. Meanwhile, Poko is having a good time, but suddenly he sneezes on the floor, discovering his ears, and Souta has no choice but to put a can on his head to hide it and give Poko a chance to hide it again. They continue cooking, and Hiroshi is surprised that they have to step on the dough to stretch it. He finds it fun and wants to try it, but suddenly the Poko's tail comes off, and the protagonist takes him and asks him to go out to take some onions. Poko tries to hide his tail, but he can't and even let his ears come out and is nervous about breaking the promise he made and ends up shapeshifted into a tanuki. Hiroshi notices that Poko is lasting too much, so the protagonist goes for him and is surprised to see him as a tanuki. To top it all, Hiroshi is curious about why the protagonist doesn't let him see Poko, so he goes to see, and the protagonist barely could hide Poko's clothes so he can pretend to be a regular tanuki. Hiroshi strokes him, and for some reason it brings memories of Poko, so he starts to suspect the weird attitude of Souta, and because he doesn't think that the ears and tail he saw in Poko were fake, so he thinks that maybe Poko is not a regular boy. Poko runs away, and the protagonist says to Hiroshi that it doesn't matter if he has ears or a tail, that he's still being Poko, isn't he? But Hiroshi says that he is saying crazy things because that is not normal, but the protagonist thinks that it wouldn't change the love he feels for Poko. This attitude brings memories to Hiroshi because when he started at the company, everyone treated him as a weirdo, but Souta didn't because he was efficient and nice, so he can't help but cry for feeling identified. Meanwhile, Poko is moved on how nice the protagonist is, even accepting he is a tanuki, so he puts all his effort to come back to normality and transform himself into a child. Souta tries to fool Hiroshi about the tanuki topic, but he doesn't even care about it anymore and promises him that they will be friends forever. Then they give it eat the udon they made, but it is thick, so they can't call it udon, and even his sister laughs at this. But now the protagonist is nostalgic because he would have liked to pay more attention to his father, and now he knows how hard this work is. Rinko changes the topic. After all, she wants him to think better about Poko because she thinks he's another person's son, and this makes Souta thinks about all the effort Poko makes to hide his real nature. So he says to him that when he goes to bed, he can shapeshift into a tanuki so he can rest correctly. On the other hand, the monk is interested in Poko because he he begins to suspect that he is not the protagonist's son, but he is not sure yet. At the weekend, Souta and Rinko start to clean up while Nakajima plays with Poko and shares his feelings. It turns out that his mother cried to him to accept a marriage interview and he had no chance but to accept. Then it is lunchtime and it is Rinko who wants to cook, and everyone is surprised because she doesn't cook. However, she wants to try and gives her best, so Souta and Nakajima are worried about what should have happened to her to get to that point. Anyway, when she finishes, the first victim will be Poko that seems excited in front of the Rinko's first meal, but starts to trembling after the first bite. Nakajima confirms that it is horrible, but Poko as an angel tries to say that it's delicious. Although Souta is annoying due she hasn't had to insist if she doesn't know how to cook. Rinko is offended because she gave her best, so leaves crying and Nakajima goes for her. Rinko asks him how much he plans to follow her, and he laughs at that because when they were young she said the same thing to him because Souta had an accident and was in the hospital, so they both did the same route to visit him. He achieves calm her down, so changes the topic to the Nakajima's failed marriage interviews, but he says that it is better if they do not talk about it because when he was younger he liked her and Rinko confesses that she liked him too, but now Nakajima regrets he never took courage to let her know. Anyway, Rinko says that it is up because she sees him as a relative as Souta sees Poko. Nakajima wants a cigarette to relax, but Rinko says that he shouldn't because she is pregnant and he now freezes hearing that. On the other hand, the protagonist remembers when they were children and their mother passed away. Rinko tries to replace her by cleaning the house and doing the laundry, but she never could in the kitchen. So now he regrets even worse, telling her that the food she cooked was disgusting. But Rinko has no hard feelings because it is true, and who inherited the talent for cooking is him. Souta is surprised to see that Rinko is pregnant and is a little bit annoyed to be the last one who knows it. But who is having a difficult time is Rinko because after knowing Poko, she doesn't know if she will be a good mom, so Poko reveals to us that he actually has the power to bring good and valuable memories to people, and Rinko sees when her mother says to her that she's going to be a good mom because she is very responsible. Rinko is surprised and wants to talk more with them, but this is just a memory and disappears. But Souta confirms what his mother said because in the end was Rinko who take care of him when he was a child, so now Rinko is more confident in herself. On the other hand, the protagonist remembers that he wanted to learn how to cook udon as his father, making him wonder things. Days after, Souta accepts that he wants to stay with Poko forever, but first he has to teach him how to behave because he's still behaving a little bit messy. He finds a photography album and with it remembers that he used to hate the town and he did not know what to do with his life until he met Dahama, so feels very grateful with him. Then Manabu calls him to offer him a job and he is happy to have his first freelance job, which is broadcasting Live the Town Festival. So he goes to the park to talk with Manabu and Yuki, and he realizes that they put a lot of love on his job because they want to make happy the biggest number of people they can, and Souta feels represented by that because it was the reason he was a developer. Next day, Nakajima goes home and sees that Souta is cooking udon, so he thinks he will open the restaurant, but he is only practicing the father's recipes, so he will be back to try udon. Later, Rinko arrives and the protagonist tells her that he wants to adopt Poko, but she is worried about his real fathers and says that they have to agree with it, but Souta doesn't know how to explain where is Poko from, so Rinko asks him about the vision she had and if Poko has something to do with it. Nakajima wakes up and they all decides to go to the festival because Souta has work to do there and all the others have free time, so they are walking around with Mang and her children, and to top it all, Hiroshi and Dahama were at the festival too, and all see how Souta work helps Manabu to expand his exposition and satisfaction of the customers. Then Souta spends some time with Poko and notice that when they are together, he remembers lots of good things about his childhood. May asks him until when he will be with Poko, so the protagonist confesses that he plans to adopt him, which she believes is a fantastic idea, and even they look like father and son. The festival starts and Poko is surprised to see the fireworks, but the amaze is too big that he let his tail comes off, which attracts everyone's attention. Souta says that it is only a toy he found somewhere around, but to top it, all the cameras were spotting them, so the situation is quite terrible for both. Souta is really frightened that Poko's true identity being discovered, so he ran away with the protagonist following him. Due to his leg pain, he cannot pursue him too much, so Poko turns back when he sees that he fell off, so Souta hugs him and promises that it doesn't matter what could happen, he will always be there for him. Poko releases his powers and show him that he always has been watching him, and even the accident he had in the leg was caused by him because he was a tanuki that Souta saved of being run over. On the other hand, Nakajima asks the monk if he knew that, and he confessed having some suspects since he saw Poko for first time because he wasn't a normal child, so he adverts that keep an eye on the protagonist just in case. Returning with Poko, he says to Souta that his dad loves him but he doesn't have a clue, so he shows him some memories of when he was in the hospital and his father went to see him even if he has to work at the restaurant. He also makes him remember that time Souta told his father that he wanted to move into Tokyo, and his father said that he should do whatever he wants, but he just didn't understand him, and he actually was very proud of his job even if he tried to hide his feelings. He just thought he was incredible. Souta regrets couldn't talk more with him, and in that moment his father appears and says to him that he doesn't have to be worried because it is him who has to apologize for leaving and haven't talked about lots of things. Souta doesn't blame him because it was him who went to Tokyo and let the work absorb him to the point he didn't even call to talk with him. So he burst in tears because he really loved his udon and he did not think and how would he feel with the hurtful words he said before leaving. Poko gives to him the recipes book that was a gift for him because he knew how much he loved it and he didn't want it to get lost, so Poko shows him all his life and all the love his father put in the book to protect what he loved when he was a child. His father says goodbye and Poko says that he loved him again. So Soba noticed that Poko appeared to show him the true feelings of his father, but he also says to him that he loves him. So Soda says that they will be always together, but Poko has to go, so he says that they will always be together in their hearth. Sauda accepts it, and the next day go to visit the monk to ask about tanukis who shapeshift, and he explained that it's complicated, that a tanuki do that, and they only do that when they have to deliver an important message, and it seems that he was successful in that. Sauda is more determined than ever, so he tells Dahama that he is working in Kagawa, so he accepts his resignation but tells him that he is still sending work to do, so he shouldn't relax. In addition, Manambu also says that he has him an account to work together, so he doesn't have to worry about job. Then he reveals to Mei that Poko returns where he belongs, but he feels that they are together because there are feelings that connect them, and she understands because she knows that someday children takes their own way, but they will always stay together. Later, Rinko sees the pictures that Hiroshi took and find out that Poko is not in any of it, but Sauda knows that Poko is good with that, although he managed to take a photo that will remain as the only physic memory of Poko. However, he already accepted that he loves this town, and he always loved the soap smell that the restaurant have in the afternoons, so now he can live in peace because he has accepted his true feelings about the place where he is happier than ever.